Hello everyone, today I'm gonna be reviewing the most recent LMG in the game, being the famous Dinnerplate 27. I'm just sure that most of us got familiar with this weapon in the game PUBG. Well, I'm gonna talk about the general purpose, the performance it gives us, and the main issues of this weapon, and it might as well surprise you. So let's start it off with the performance, the general statistics of this weapon. So it has been like 3 weeks since this weapon was added, but I gave a break on the game, so I repeated the same cycle of progress just to be able to get this weapon in a while, and I did. So in the end I said, why not? So this weapon, based on performance, on the paper especially, is pretty similar to the MG82, having the same damage and the fire rate. But when we compare it with the MG82, based on all the rest of the stats, this weapon might look a little saddening because on the paper, compared to the MG82, it has worse everything else. Worse mobility, harder to control, worse stability, and worse range, a shorter damage range. But I'm gonna start it with the control, and it gets weird from here. So even though the control is pretty much worse than the MG82 on the paper, when we look at it in a technical way and not a theoretical way, this weapon actually outperforms MG82 based on recoil. This weapon doesn't really show that much recoil. It has some recoil, but it only makes your experience better, makes the weapon fun, and it doesn't get in your way. Well, I guess it's because of MG82's Iron Cross. MG82 has a pretty tight Iron Cross that covers too much space on our screen. Even though this weapon has a big dinner plate covering the whole screen, it's perfectly aligned in my opinion, so it still exposes the opponent while showing us some really nice visuals, despite the fact that this weapon carries an interesting amount of ammo, which is 63, not too much, but not too low either. It still has worse mobility than most of the weapons that can carry over 100 ammos, it seems. It has a slow reload speed and a slow movement speed despite the fact that it doesn't carry too much ammos. Well, this weapon doesn't show too much recoil, and it has a clear iron sight. It's easy to aim with this iron sight. It's big enough, and it doesn't cover the whole screen like the MJ82 does. Well, let's talk about the main issue of this weapon, and it's actually pretty niche. It's unexpected, especially in this map. It starts changing its colors when we get in a semi-protected area like this, where we're covered up with walls around us and a bunch of exits for us to leave. This weapon literally becomes very loud. It echoes, and this might be a huge problem, and it might get in our ways when we play mods like Search and Destroy, especially in later games, because in Search and Destroy, especially in later games, the ending part of the Search and Destroy mode, we need to follow the sounds to understand if we're in danger or not. And this weapon absolutely exposes us by being extremely loud in areas like these where bombs are supposed to be planted, which the places aligned for the bombs to be planted are the main material of the ending game of Search and Destroy modes. This weapon absolutely gets in our way and exposes us in modes like that, especially in places like these. People can hear us easily. If you're against good players at your level, they're probably gonna try to hear the sounds, and this weapon might get in our way with being loud. But still, for the sake of it being a unique weapon, maybe sometimes we gotta ignore the flaws of it and just look in our ways, you know. You might as well keep an eye on it, keep it on your inventory, because it's really fun to play, even though it's not too reliable, and my internet sucks.